Let me welcome our listeners to this first podcast of the International Dialogue Initiative. I'm Jerry Fromm. I'm the president of the International Dialogue Initiative, and I'm going to be interviewing Vamik Volkan, who is the president emeritus of the IDI and its founder. Vamik, if we talked about all of your credentials and all of your books, we would use up the entire half an hour. So I'm just going to say that besides founding the International Dialogue Initiative, you're professor emeritus at the University of Virginia Medical School and a training and supervising analyst at the Washington Psychoanalytic Institute and many other honors over the years, and have written many books on psychopolitical topics. And today, Vamik and I will be talking about the psychopolitical dynamics of society in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. So Vamik, I'm going to put out a number of topics, and I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit about each one of them. But first, let me say that as many people have written, we have two pandemics on our hands. One is the pandemic of the virus, and the other is of fear or anxiety or potential panic. And the way anxiety plays out among large groups of people is something you've written a lot about. So on our agenda are the topic of trauma and of large group identity and borders and leaders, and also the fact that with so many deaths, there is the problem of mourning and loss. So why don't you start us off with some thoughts about trauma? You've done so much work on that.
Well, trauma is a Greek word, refers to physical injury, but we are going to talk about psychological trauma. Interestingly, psychiatry, psychology, mental health people, somehow we're not paying attention to external events. And given the post-traumatic disorder topic, became legal in 1980. Now we are very much more aware, not you and I, but many in our profession now are writing about papers, books about how external and internal events intertwine. And there are various types, and I will mention them first to find out where this one fits. It's the unseen danger influencing everybody in the world.
Absolutely.
A very unusual one. But if we look at different kind of traumas, we can then describe what kind of traumas they go beyond the location where they occur. They become involved in political psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my name is Volkan in Turkish, but comes from volcano. And if a volcano bursts, it is a natural trauma, earthquakes, and some of them are horrible. I mean, earthquakes and forest fires and so on. And who do you blame?
Yeah.
Who do you blame? You say it is fate, or it's act of God. And even there are groups, sometimes even some religious groups say, oh, we did something bad, sinful, and because of this, God is punishing us, or something like that. But it does not get involved with your large group identity. If it happens in, let's say, in Poland, an earthquake and kills Polish people, God forbid. It is not something that some other people with another identity, there is no deliberate action to hurt them. It is fate. And there are accidents like Chernobyl, because of the radioactive clouds and so on, went to other countries. In fact, I am from Cyprus. In Cyprus now there is a lot of Alzheimer and Parkinsonism. And there's no scientific study of this, but the general belief is that it is because of Chernobyl. Somehow the clouds supposedly had come over Cyprus. It was an accident by some small group of people. So it not really disturbs political issues, border issues. Then there are other types of traumas that become societal traumas, such as murdering a political leader. A political leader always is a transference figure, whether we know it or not, whether we like the leader, even we say this leader is not very good, we have another party or something. We are busy with this person, man or woman, because they become a figure for whole large group. And if somebody kills this leader, then society responds to it. Best example, I am not saying in a good way, as an example is when John F. Kennedy was murdered, the whole country responded. I still remember the minute I heard about this news. And same thing, I was inaugural Yitzhak Rabin Fellow in Israel, and same thing, Rabin was killed. If the killer belongs to the same large group identity as the leader, it doesn't become, this murder doesn't become a psychopolitical mess. And then you kill each other deliberately. I'm a psychoanalyst, you're a psychoanalyst. I'm not going to go give technical terms about aggressive drives and so on, or go to Erik Erikson and, we have been killing each other. We are the most vicious animal.
Long before psychoanalysis.
Long before psychoanalysis. Once I was in Kruger Park in South Africa, and that's where all the animals go around and so on. Yeah. And you have to stay in motels surrounded by walls because some animal can come and eat you up. And I watched the animals and I felt embarrassed. They're also killing, but they're killing other animals mostly.
The purpose of eating.
Yeah, purpose of eating, yes. Erik Erikson used the word pseudo-speciation. Tell me.
Speciation, yeah.
My English, I'm losing my English as I got locked up in the house. So as if other people are less than human and we kill them, and wars keep going on. Of course, terrorism, genocides, oh my God, this has been going on.
For example, 9/11.
Yes.
Great example of what you're talking about.
And when such things happen, when a trauma is carried out deliberately by somebody from another large group, so-called large group identity becomes the main topic. You mentioned that I worked in international arena. I brought representatives of opposing countries, including Americans and Soviets way back, then Russians, then Baltic republics, Serbs and Croats, and Turks and Greeks, you name it. Behind the military, political, legal issues, always there are psychological issues connected to large group conflicts. Main thing is to protect and maintain this abstract thing that we call large group identity, meaning thousands of people or millions of people sharing same sentiments. These people will never see each other, but they share same sentiments as well as same historical images from the past. And in daily language, we say we are Apache, we are Basque, we are Catalan, we are Jews in Lithuania. I was in Lithuania about a month and a half ago. Main thing was that, my God, during the Nazi invasion, most Jewish people were killed in Lithuania. So they have an identity with this historical background, for example. Mm-hmm. And then there are national identities, ethnic identities, religious identities. And later on, I will also talk about how some investment in political parties under certain leadership also becomes like creating a large group identity. One example of it would be like extreme whitist supremacist group in America, and they become their own identity. So not only between countries there are borders and divisions in large group identity, but within the same country also certain divisions occur. Let's come to COVID-19. Well, I'm going to say that when I was bringing this enemy group representatives together with my Virginia team, which was multidisciplinary. Without multidisciplinary team, you cannot do much of unofficial psychology. I used to think that if some enemy came from the space, let's say Martians as enemy, come to the world to conquer the world, we will give up all the border, we all get together because we have a common enemy. And when COVID-19 began, and I wondered about its traumatic influence on human mind, first I thought that it was just like, they were like Martians, enemy coming and everybody going to get together. Well, it happened, and just the opposite also happened. Borders became very important suddenly. Let me start with borders becoming extremely important after COVID-19. First of all, it is a realistic thing. You have to protect people, and you close the borders, you take care of your people and so on. But borders became extremely dramatically into our minds. For example, airplanes would not come from one border to another border. Flights are canceled. I have in-laws in North Carolina. They were supposed to go back to Turkey last month. No way.
Yeah.
So like in America, for example. I'm from Cyprus, Northern Cyprus. During the last 2 weeks, Northern Cyprus became one of the unusual places on earth. They stopped COVID-19. No more COVID-19 cases. Nobody can come to Northern Cyprus.
Yeah.
When you can imagine the economy and so on. But now, for the last 2 weeks, they have no new cases. A small country, of course. Whole population is smaller than population of Virginia, for example. So, but borders became extremely important, medically and realistically. But right away, they also became connected with politics. And politicians, again, they're just like you and me. I met many of them. Gorbachev, Yasser Arafat, Jimmy Carter, many, many leaders I got to know. Some of them I got to know very well. They're just like you and me. You go in your neighborhood and you like some people, they're very nice, and you meet other people and you say hello and you pass by. But besides that, most of them have some urge to become leader. They have certain kind of narcissism. So before I proceed, I want to say that narcissism is not a bad word. If you didn't have your narcissism, Jerry, you wouldn't be the president of IDI. If I didn't have my narcissism, I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Sure.
There's different kind of narcissism. But it became, whether they meant to, some of them meant to, others did not. The closing borders also became a political issue. Like the enemy is out there.
Yeah.
I gave a seminar to Chinese mental health workers on April 3rd. I did not mention a word about politics. As soon as I finished, the first question was asked was about borders, why Americans or American leader uses the word Chinese virus. You see, it became an issue that touched their emotions.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Know what I was thinking. And I said I went along with Trump, probably they would turn off the computer right away. So this virus, in a sense, increased the issue of large group identities. Again, let me give Cyprus, small country, divided into north side, south side, Turks and Greeks, and they have been fighting and so on. And last year's borders are open. As soon as I go to Cyprus, a Greek friend from Cyprus, I don't mention names, come to my house, we drink and so on. I just heard from them just a few minutes ago. Borders were kind of open and people were going in and out. Now,
Sure.
closed. But
Yeah.
closed for realistic reasons.
Yeah.
The border issue came up again. We live in America, we hear about borders constantly. Meanwhile, because of communication technology is so incredible, there are psychological holes in these borders when people-to-people relationships take place. As you are saying, I've been around many, many places in the world. Suddenly, I started getting emails from people from all over the world. I gave seminars to Chinese, to Turkey, Azerbaijan, Cyprus. I just wrote a paper for Lithuania. Razak school, government school in Malaysia got in touch with me. I had given a lecture there years ago. They want me to say something. I sent them something. Yesterday, I got a call from Brazil. I mean, it's people are opening holes. We are getting emails from Finland and so on. I mean, just people also felt like they were having the same enemy and they got together. Politics are developing differently than human relationships. So how this is going to evolve and continue, obviously is, I'm not a prophet.
Yeah.
I don't know what will happen.
Yeah.
I listened to Senate talking yesterday with American scientists who know about virus. And all I can say is that I trust them and they don't really know. This is something that is going to take place for some time. And how this trauma is going to change the world and human interactions, we will wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, just a couple of comments. We are seeing once again the centuries-old, in a sense, conflict between science and faith.
Yes.
You know, that's erupting all over the place. And the other thing that I've been thinking about is that at a very basic level, the virus, there are two kinds of anxieties associated with it.
Yes.
One is a kind of paranoia, you're going to give this to me. And the other is sort of a depressive anxiety, I'm going to give this to you, and I care about you. And I think two kinds of leadership are coming up in that context. One is leadership that says, we have to stick together here. We're all fighting an unseen enemy. And then there's a leadership that kind of says, they're doing this to us. We have to fight them or build a wall against them, and even use this to kind of build a nationalist agenda, something like that.
Absolutely. I have the same observations. Again, we need to pay great attention to how leadership takes place. And only advice we can give them is to be truthful, while necessary things in politics you have to do, but truthfulness would be the most important. Scientists or you and I can wish that and say that, but leaders may carry on things differently anyhow, but we need to discuss leadership so that the public understand this issue.
Yeah.
It's extremely, extremely important.
And I think this gets to another part of what you've written so much about, which is mourning. You know, in a way, it must be easy for, not easy, but an inclination to think about the numbers, how many people are suffering, how many people have died, and to do that in a way that loses contact with the feeling of the loss and the grief and the mourning. So in other words, I'm thinking that another quality of leadership right now, a healthy quality, is empathy, feeling for the suffering of people who can't say goodbye to their loved one.
Yeah, I look at some international news, obviously, and you see some leaders have empathy and some leaders appear as if they never heard of empathy. There are all kinds of things. Let me just say two things that you brought up. One is about religion and about mourning. when a scientist, I don't really call myself scientist, I'm a psychological scientist, but people like us talk about religion, they right away they say, oh, you're not religious, you don't believe in God, and so on. And it is very difficult to talk about religion. But this is a time that we need to say something about this. I talk to people in different countries. Let me not mention the name of it. In one country, the mental health workers, they were most worried about was how to deal with religious component in their country. It was a Orthodox Christianity in this country. And they did not even know how the government could stop them. At the peak of this contamination, they were using the same spoon at the church and putting things in people's mouths and so on. So it is up to us to say that reality is reality. And belief in God and so on is fine to comfort some people. But religion should not interfere with the reality and cause more illnesses and death. I hear this all over the world, not in America only. That's what I wanted to say. The second thing is that mourning situation. Of course, the typical way of understanding mourning would be examining the response of a mourner after a person is lost. But mourning is in relation to any kind of loss in this mourning process. Everybody right now in America and everywhere where there is this virus facing losses. I'm facing my main loss, you know what it is?
So I think your big loss is that you can't hug your grandchildren.
Yes, exactly. Especially we have now a small one, suddenly 3 years old, and we see her running around and jumping, but I cannot touch her, thing like that.
Absolutely.
And even not being able to go downtown or to a movie is a loss. Of course, also the anxiety that you may get sick and so on is a loss.
Yeah.
So this is why the psychology of mourning needs to be understood by people in general. When I get messages from different countries, I hear that that's what they want to know, what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to accept the fact that all of us are facing losses right now. And these losses in our minds sometimes get connected with our previous losses. It makes it difficult. So people should be aware of it, that if they dream about their previous losses and so on, it is because they are facing a new loss. If a loss is dramatic, like somebody dies and so on, we go through what is called a grief reaction, acute reaction. You cry, you hit your head on a wall as if the wall will open and the lost person or thing will come back. And it doesn't, but you get angry. You're not even aware that you're angry. You have fantasies that somebody's dead, but it's perspiring in your dream. Whatever, it is cry and so on. And once you accept the fact that, even before you accept fully the fact that a big loss occurred, you start mourning process. Mourning means going over the images that are not available to you now. Play with those images. Like if somebody dies, the image of that person, you are very busy with that image until the first anniversary of the loss or second anniversary of the loss. Slowly it becomes featureless. And then you invest in other things and so on, anniversaries or some other occasions you remember the lost person and so on.
All the little goodbyes that have to happen.
And sometimes you remember good memories, you love, sometimes you cry, becomes featureless. Like you and I know, very koteke, use that word. That's why I'm using that from Finland. Uh, it is very difficult to make things futureless right now
Yes.
because we are, without knowing, we are mourning.
Yeah. And it's going on. It's not over.
Going on.
Let me ask you one more thing. It was something you said before about the loss now gets connected to past losses.
Yes.
And I found myself thinking that about pre-existing conditions.
Yes.
You know, usually that phrase means
Yes.
physical conditions that make a person more vulnerable to COVID-19. But I think you and I would also talk about pre-existing conditions in large groups.
Absolutely.
So, for example, in some of the Orthodox faiths, the suppression of religion
Yes.
and the persecution of religion.
Absolutely.
And now they've come back, but they're kind of up against a kind of suppression by the government saying, no, you can't have your services in person.
Yes.
And then the one that I was thinking a lot about is when about a month ago, when the various states were closing down.
Yes.
I think the state of Tennessee was resisting that.
Yes.
And there was a big party in the streets of Nashville, and somebody yelled, "Nashville is undefeated."
Yes.
And I found myself thinking about the pre-existing condition of the Civil War.
Right.
And that kind of fault line in society, and how something like this, you know, the government is telling us what to do. No, they can't do that. You know, what do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting because a graduate student, he just graduated, used his thesis, my ideas about mourning, political psychology. He's from Tennessee. You know that he wrote to me almost same thing that you are telling me, and he wanted to see if I could write it with him or something like that. So you are not alone. This kind of things are coming up. There's a town called Bristol, and downtown, half of it is in Virginia, half of it is in Tennessee.
Really?
Yes. And so you have the big road, and half of the road, the restaurants are not open, on the other half of the road are open. So you see the borders kind of coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also leadership in America is not helping with this. America first becomes not America first in a general, nice way, but America first becomes a group of Americans, kind of whitest supremacists, that we are better than anybody else.
Yeah.
So in a sense, and also, you know, poor people, people of color are dying more. Basically, if this is going to be just for a few more months or so, will be something. But if this goes on for a year, if there's another
second wave,
you know, it comes up, then life would be very, very different. So this is why you and I talking right now, and many people are doing this. But hopefully, we give deeper psychological insights about mourning and so on. Don't stay on the surface, because our profession is that we understand such things deeper. For example, how do you deal with it? For example, I gave my talk to 8,000 Chinese mental health workers on Qingming, day before Qingming Festival. Qingming Festival in China, people go to cemeteries on April 4th. I gave my lecture on April 3rd, and they were very interested to have it on April 3rd, because next day they would go to cemeteries. And in a sense, turning mourning situation into something positive, like generational continuity. These are my ancestors, these are my people, and so on, clean the cemeteries and so on. So many religions also have very good ceremonies and so on, that we have to pay attention to that.
Absolutely.
But there are also, you know, like people were saying, if someplace 500 people died in one day. It may happen, hopefully never. And you bury them together, what are you going to do? So we need to think about memorials and ways of helping societal mourning besides the individual mourning, that we have some ideas about that. All these things are happening at this point. And as I say, whether you know it or not, we are all having losses. We need to bring political psychology, political understanding of these processes to find deeper ways to share ideas with the public. I hope that IDI will be a tool for this.
Yeah. Well, this conversation is certainly in that direction. So, Vamik, thank you very much for having this talk with me. And as I said at the beginning, this is the first of a series of podcasts the IDI will be doing and putting out there. And before I close, I think I'll just tell our listeners that the International Dialogue Initiative is a group of about 20 or so professionals from different disciplines who've been meeting now for about 12 or 13 years to discuss exactly these kinds of things, to deepen our understanding of the psychology of societies and large groups and societal conflict. And our website is internationaldialogueinitiative.com. And we look forward to whatever conversation comes from this conversation. So thank you very much, Vamik. See you soon. Bye-bye.
All right, Jerry.